Previously on X-Men.
Hey guys, welcome to the Podtendo podcast, where we're doing kind of an in-depth review, follow-along live reaction to the X-Men 97 animated series that was dropped over the last month and a week or something like that. I guess 8 episodes, 9 weeks of X on Disney+. I am your co-host Mick, and I'm joined by
Tyson.
And we're going to talk and finish up kind of a big conclusion. So we'll give you our episode 10 breakdown, so we'll kind of go through that. And then we're going to do kind of a season overview and a binge review in the second half of the podcast. So that's kind of what we're doing. So starting off, it's pretty exciting. Episode 10. So it's come and gone. Season 1, X-Men 97 in the books. Specifically episode 10. Were you happy?
Yes, I was.
Yeah, me too.
I was.
Yeah.
I was surprised where I was back on the, well, I kind of called some of these things train, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, there was some things were overblown. We'll get to that at some point. I don't know if that's this one, but yeah, cool. I also enjoyed it. I was so excited that I might have woken up like 40 minutes earlier on Wednesday and like made a bunch of scrambled eggs and had a nice toasted bagel and sat there on the couch and watched this before I went to work.
Oh, nice. You had a little mini Saturday morning cartoon on a Wednesday.
Yeah, that's what I was going for. But like the rest of the day, I was just so tired. And I was like, oh, I've made a terrible mistake. But nothing was spoiled. So pretty good, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I even waited till later on the day after work, as I usually do.
Sure.
And no major spoilers that I kind of came across. And it was good just to kind of, I liked these weekly releases. It was a nice event once a week.
Yeah.
Kind of sit down, watch an episode, and it allowed us to kind of marinate in some
talk
of
and
these
discuss
episodes.
And all these other things too, right? Like we couldn't have a live reaction podcast to this, right? So think, for example, a video game adjacent podcast has come out recently in, say, Fallout, but it was dropped in one day. So if I didn't watch the whole thing that day and talk about it, it's almost like not worth it, right? We're even pushing our reaction podcast here, pushing this about almost a week, right? But again, we're going to do kind of a big season overview. This is going to be our episode for the week, so it might come out a little bit earlier on maybe like even the Tuesday. I might even release it on the holiday Monday here, so a couple days earlier for just everyone to kind of digest and listen as they kind of go into their week, right? And it's just a different experience, right? We can theorize, we can talk, you can be like, oh, be excited about it, whereas the binge releases they come and go. Oh, did you watch Fallout? No. Okay, well, we'll never talk about it because when I watch it in a month, you'll have forgotten about it.
Yeah, well, that's really the trick is when you release it, it kind of has that big opening, like a bigger first week.
Yeah.
Or maybe 2 weeks, kind of like in like movie box office, kind of the same thing. It's like that first week is their big week, second week's kind of your okay week, and then it falls off a cliff.
Yeah. Cool.
This being released week by week made you have to come back, and then there was new things to talk about, so there was always more things to discover. Kind of stretched it out a little bit longer. I think I prefer the weekly when I enjoy the show.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Awesome. This is so funny because it's literally part of my season overview is this discussion, so we might come back to it. So we're just going to put a bookmark here. We'll come back, but let's talk about episode 10, right? So that's kind of what we're doing off the top here. So episode 10, just like we have in the past, we have to start with our introduction. So was there anything new in the final introduction of?
Yeah, we got Charles and Magneto in the past attacking defending themselves against some army guys. That was new.
Okay.
I see in your notes you have him detecting Emma Frost.
Yeah.
I think that might have showed up around episode 4 when he first came back, because I remember there was a lot of that kind of in the thing. I think I remember mentioning it.
But it might have.
Anytime I see her, it's like,
oh, gotcha.
Hey,
but
note it.
It might have went away and then came back.
Yes, yeah. It did.
Okay.
It did.
All right. Okay. Cool. So. Neat. All right. So with that though, we got to catch you guys up. We got to give you Podtendo's terrible plot. Oh, plot terrible though. Maybe that's an idea for a future podcast. Terrible plot summary, give you the need to know, and then we'll kind of get into the review of this fine episode. So on episode 10, it's called Tolerance is Extinction, Part 3. Xavier invades Magneto's head to restore power to the Earth, and I guess save the magnetic field? This causes a fraction in Magneto's mind that Xavier must try to restore to save his friend. Sinister and Bastion gloat over their victory until the Phoenix returns to ugly up Sinister and destroys Bastion control over the Prime Sentinels. This leads Bastion to head to Asteroid M to crash it into Earth with some fancy cable upgrade. This leads to the depleted X-Men trying to hold off the attack until reinforcements arrive. The government sends missiles to destroy the asteroids and sends it hurling towards Earth. In the dying seconds, Magneto returns, saves the asteroids, and neutralizes Bastion, only to see Asteroid M and the X-Men disappear. 6 months later, we see Forge discussing the disappearance of the X-Men with Bishop. Jean and Scott turn up in a post-apocalyptic, that's funny, future, while the rest of the team arrives in ancient Egypt.
Yeah, no sight on Wolverine or Morph. I watched it again,
Or
being
Storm.
like, yes.
Yes.
So some people are not accounted for, but dang, what a great little ending. Very comic booky, like lots of action going on. I think the pacing was really solid on this one. We had some kind of flips, like the Phoenix rising and saving everybody was unexpected in my opinion, but I don't know why I didn't expect it.
It
Like
was
they've been
kind of
hinting at
hinted
it.
literally at the intro all season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hence why I was like,
And like
I
every time they're
don't
like,
know why I
Jean keeps
missed
dying and comes back. How many times has Jean resurrected from the dead? Like they
Yeah.
just kept like leading it in. So when it happened, you're like, I guess, okay.
yeah, well, you know what? I think because they let it so much, it wasn't like, oh wow, shocking. It was more like, oh yeah, okay, I see what you did here. This is okay. I'm okay with the solution.
Awesome, cool. So let's get into the favorite parts. So we can talk about all the scenes afterwards. But what is just your favorite part of this episode? So episode 10. For myself, I wrote down this episode did a really nice job of just setting the stakes and mixing kind of the Bastion / Asteroid M. And I think what was done is a pretty epic climax, right? It seemed like it kind of made sense. There was a cliffhanger, and it kind of feels earned, right? Just to be kind of follow along with the story beats and all the little sprinkling of future plots that they have throughout the series, right? It kind of makes it earned, right? Leaves season 2 in a pretty interesting place. I felt it felt appropriate for the story that they were telling, and that says something, right? The number of recent shows that I've watched that just have terrible endings, and just to be competent, right? And have similar themes for the rest of the show. Seems pretty basic, but lots of shows can't do it, right? There's lots of cliffhangers that just happen for no reason. But this one, I'm like, I could actually see where they're going with future stories, right? And I understand why they told this story from that aspect to kind of get to this point, right? So just, again, that nice epic climax, and it's felt very satisfying, right? I didn't leave with too many questions or anything like that. So I think that'd be my favorite part. Do you have a favorite part of this?
Lots to pick from. I kind of just like this episode as a whole, but I'll pick my pick one episode that kind of stands out in my head when I think back on this episode is the X-Men team versus Bastion final thing.
Yep.
And they're like, and Scott has the moment of like realization. It's like, well, why don't we do what we've been asking humanity to do and accept the future?
Yeah.
And it was like him leaning into it.
Sure.
And everybody was like, yeah, why are we fighting when we should be negotiating and being political? And to me, it's like, damn, what a great little, like, the climax of the battle is philosophical. And you're like, this is beautiful. Something that we've been kind of batting about, like, is Magneto right? Was Charles right? And at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, they are right, but they're not doing what they're preaching. So will they finally practice what they preach? And it ends up finding the emotional key to Bastion and saving the day. And it was like beautiful. It was beautifully written. I love that little scene. You think it like this show that's given us tons of action throughout of it finally gave us a moment of like revelations, but it was based on characters, and I think it was earned. I really like that episode. I really like that scene. That scene was like, I was like, damn.
Yeah, no,
well done.
That was actually on a rewatch. It was kind of that nice because you are expecting the climax, the action, and then again, just take a step back, have a pause, and let's be philosophical. Let's talk about our roles. Expertly chosen said, and it is a very beautiful moment too, right? It's kind of the point of the X-Men, yeah, they have magical powers, but also their morality is kind of what guides them on the righteous path, right? So in a world of hatred, and fear, you kind of have to be the bigger guy. You have to be the diplomatic here. So very well done. And yeah, fitting. It's kind of like, how do you beat Bastion? You don't. You accept him. You join him. Joins, right? So now, ultimately, I think he was destroyed when the gravity core on Asteroid M was destroyed, right? So it's probably the end of that character.
I agree. I think he was kind of sacrificed because he realized that he had that moment of realization where he was like, I'm doing all these things because I'm so afraid, but the people I'm so afraid of are willing to accept me for me.
Certainly. And like a lot of leaps happen, right? He's like, oh no, your mother actually hated mutants. She was a bigot. That's why you didn't come to this school. Otherwise you would have been with Professor X, and like your future could be different. And like he just like straight up is like, oh, versus a lot of times villains would be like, no, you're wrong. You're just lying to me. You're deceiving me. But maybe he's like something he always knew. He's like, yeah, I've seen her mind. She's full of hate. She hates me, kind of thing, right? So hates me at my core, right? Same with like the Roberto da Costa mom, right? Basically hates mutants, but she's like, well, I love my son, but I hate mutants. And that's kind of the same. We saw very similar things with Bastion. So it's done expertly. They didn't have to like lay it out and like show us scene by scene, but no, I really like that. Let's look at notable scenes. So if there's just something that kind of hangs out or pops out at each of these scenes, stop us. We're going through. So the first, Professor X and Magneto hanging out in an old pub, listening to the birds.
Yep, I think it was probably one of the first time that they discussed being mutants. They were kind of reliving that moment.
Oh, it's probably a very intimate experience, right? Basically, they're coming out, as it were, right? So
it has huge vibes of that.
All right, Phoenix Rising. Love.
Yes. Well, as soon as she showed up, and I was like, of course.
Yeah.
Why'd I note this?
Who would have thought? Sinister's defeat, right? He kind of gets all ugly and then just runs away. It's fitting.
Oh, beautiful Saturday morning cartoon ending. It's like, show me my face. Morph shows him. It's like, I don't see any difference to me.
He runs away and he's like, I'm hideous. Yeah, that was
I'm ugly now.
Bastion just defeating Cable, ripping his arm off, beating him basically to death with his own arm.
Yep, that was pretty badass. And then he gets himself some sweet upgrades. Kind of looks like an Archangel.
Yeah, he kind of had like, that, right? Yeah.
An Archangel mixed with like Onslaught, kind of big. But he has wings, not shoulder pads, but like the walls, everything.
Yeah. It was
very
just,
cool.
I don't know. He like upgrades himself with this futuristic cyborg arm. But he has like this neuro disruptor on his head, and then it just kind of disappears, and like the Prime Sentinels don't come back. And I'm like, why didn't you just like take off the little thing?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, all right. It was for plot. Okay, yeah, makes sense. The X-Men bracing for Bastion's attack on Asteroid M. Sure, cool. We do have a nice actually moment, and as much as I've pooped on this character all season, Sunspot looking at Jubilee and saying, hey Jubilee, I'm sorry, I basically learned how to use my powers yesterday, so I'm definitely dead. I'm looking down, here's the color of my shirt, it's red, nice to meet you. It was kind of a nice like human moment for this character that's kind of just been annoying, and I was like, okay, all right Sunspot, good for you.
They both get a little time to shine. Jubilee gets a badass little like fight scene. Well, so, damn.
So then,
so good.
From there, Rogue and Sunspot fight Bastion on the moon. Just don't think of scale. As long as you don't know the distance between Earth and the moon, it's perfectly fine. But at one point, while they're on the moon, Rogue looks to Earth, and Asteroid M is like a fair size, like, just a little bit smaller than Earth. And then at one point in New York City, Asteroid M is almost like the same size, so it's basic. I don't know.
It looks bigger than the moon. It's the scale may be a little goofy, and like wait, if he punched her, it doesn't like even if he punched her really hard, that's still a really far distance to the moon.
Oh, like just don't look how the distance between Earth and the moon. Fine, makes sense. Also, Rogue apparently can breathe in space, so cool, awesome. Bastion fighting.
She has Captain Marvel's powers, so we're just gonna slap. You know what?
Sure.
A little whiteout here, there. Sure.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers in the MCU flies around space. Why not? Magneto's helmet in this one also has mind rating capabilities. Sure, cool. We'll just add stuff as necessary. Cool. Bastion fighting Nightcrawler, Jubilee, and Cyclops, which might be like pound for pound if you're saying just... It's probably not the most notable, right? It's not the thing that's going to stick with you the longest, but oh, baby. You want like just best action in the episode? I think it's Nightcrawler, Jubilee, Cyclops fighting Bastion. That's like, I was like, oh.
100%. And Jubilee gets a sweet takedown on him. And you're like, this is what Podtendo was about.
Yes.
This was about the development of Jubilee is a capable fighter. And she just went toe-to-toe with the big villain and, yeah, took a shot in the face, but just got a little chip in her sunglasses, but she's good to go.
Oh, she messed him up. Oh, and it's like, yeah. It's
really
immaculate.
Good.
I've watched this episode.
He had to, like, regrow his head. It was amazing.
I've watched this now 2 or 3 times, and just, like, her leaning, ducking the punch, spinning around, and, like, landing that kind of that finishing blow, sending him into Magneto's throat. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Nightcrawler, I know that in the comics, he's fighting Bastion, and as he teleports around, Bastion kind of spins at one point, anticipates the movement, and grabs onto Nightcrawler's heart and kills him. So I was really nervous that whole time Nightcrawler was fighting him one-on-one. I'm like, uh-oh. Luckily, it was just a choke slam. He caught him by the throat and choke slammed him. There was no pulling out of organs, and I was like, whew. So, good. Great.
Yeah, comics can sometimes be brutal, so it makes you a little leery when people are going toe-to-toe with certain people.
Very much so.
There's history of this not going so good.
Then from there, we also have the Gold Team arrives in a Sentinel, although they don't really accomplish too much outside of just setting up the final...
Beast gets a moment of being like, I tricked this idiot.
Trojans. Yeah, he's like... He's like, even something about the Trojan horse. He's like, it's always seemed to work. Like, okay, cool. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, like, clever Beast.
We see the Magneto protocols where they just had a bunch of missiles that were ready to kind of go to Asteroid M and destroy it. This causes irreparable damage to the gravity core, which causes a big black hole. This is that moment where Cyclops kind of holds down his arms, tries to appeal to Bastion's humanity, and potentially does at least turn him a little bit, right? Like maybe takes him off his malevolent... godlike path just for a second, right, and touches that humanity, right?
Definitely de-escalates the situation to a point where like it becomes then a philosophical debate as opposed to like, and it makes Bastion question his past and his history to a point where he even just kills himself.
Yeah,
he just jumps into the black hole.
Oh, see, I thought he was jumping towards the X-Men, but it was just too late, and then he gets sucked into the black hole. Like, if you watch it again, I think he's jumping with his hand out to try and, like, reach out to Cyclops and take that embrace and, like, lend that olive branch, and I think he gets pulled in.
Maybe. I have to rewatch it.
That's my interpretation of what happened, rather than just him sacrificing, right? So,
I think, my first take was I thought that he just took it as he jumped the X-Men were like, jump towards us, and he's like, no, I know my fate, just jumps in.
Okay, and maybe that's how it works. I have heard someone else that was their interpretation of the scene, but I thought he was reaching. I
gotta rewatch it. You're probably more accurate because you watched it recently. I watched it on Wednesday and Thursday, and nothing since then. So.
Okay, I think I watched it just yesterday, 2 days ago.
Your memory's probably a bit better than mine. So,
all right, the X-Men. Actually, I really like this moment too, where as they're trying to escape the asteroid that's falling towards Earth, Cyclops is like, "I'll stay and slow it down from here, or try and blow it up," right? And Rogue says, "No. Remy did not die in Genosha so that more people could die, so we all can live." And Beast is like, "Oh, excellent. If we all work together, we can stop this asteroid." And we see kind of all the girls outside trying to slow down the ship as best they can. The brains inside trying to do the best they can to just kind of neutralize Jubilee. So let's go to Genosha, or go to the Galapagos Islands, right? So they're kind of out of the action for a little moment. But nice moment, nice teamwork there. And then only 3 other points. Any of the cameos do anything for you in this one? So we saw King T'Chaka, we saw Spider-Man and Mary Jane, we saw Daredevils.
We saw Iron Man. We collected the last of our Avenger. We got so we got Daredevil, Captain America, Iron Man, Doctor Strange, Cloak and Dagger. I'm always stoked to see a little Cloak and Dagger.
Why was Doctor Strange doing surgery and not like trying to stop the asteroid that was going to extinct all of mankind?
Because the person he was doing that on was in another storyline that they needed to save. Couldn't tell you.
Cool.
Couldn't tell you. Why is Captain America and Iron Man just chilling with President Kelly? Because, like, is there a credible threat that they're aware of? No, the Prime Sentinels just invade, and they're like, "Oh, I'm surprised you're here."
Yeah.
There was, I did get to see Psylocke and like the
Alpha
Puck.
Flight?
Alpha Flight. Yeah, I was trying to think of their names. I'm like Puck and North Star and the other one.
Cool. Yeah, so the Canadian constituency hanging. So maybe Psylocke's coming to Canada at some point.
Yeah, well, this I think is on Genosha.
Oh yeah.
I think that
but like
that's,
if Alpha Flight's there, maybe she like follows him back to Canada at some point.
maybe, and I can try to marry her.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There you go. Cool. So I guess that was kind of your Easter eggs too.
Yeah, some of them.
Sure.
Some of them. I have a couple.
We'll get to that. Then the final two parts is just we see the future. We see Scott and Jean arrive in the future, run into Madame Ascani or something like that, and meet a older kind of middle-aged, maybe like middle-aged, a 10-year-old Nathan. So they meet their son in the future, and we're like, oh.
Yep. And it's like, so this is where he went?
That is actually where Nathan in the comics, baby Nathan, when he's sent into the future, does get taken over by Lady Ascani, who's a future Rachel Summers from like the timeline that is the Days of Future Past or something. So it's kind of like an alternate reality, and then she kind of went forward, and essentially they're anti-apocalypse. So she kind of helps Nathan potentially with Scott and Jean in the future, who raised Nathan together to become Cable. He knew his mom and dad all along.
Yeah, or maybe we're rewriting some time here because Apocalypse is now meeting the X-Men
in the
past before he even becomes Apocalypse.
Or like meets whoever gives him his techno suits and stuff like that, right? As alluded to the final scene of looking at ancient Egypt from 3000 BC, and there's a big sphere, which I think might be from like Kang the Conqueror or Immortus. He has like a traveling time ship, so potentially it's like some type of tie into like Kang or.
God, these are good questions. I didn't dive too much into that.
Finn. So that's it. So that's or it could be like the Immortals or something, who also live on the blue side of the moon and have a big like face carved into a rock and give Apocalypse magical suits. I don't know. Just stuff going forward. So that's all this episode. That's all the scenes. Most notable, like we alluded to, probably one of the fights on the absolute England. Well done. So.
Yes, yeah, good episode. I thought it was really well done. Yeah,
cool. How about what is your least favorite part of episode 10?
The Charles and Magneto kind of battling back in time and doing that whole thing. Mm-hmm. It kind of went on a little long. I understand. I think that it was a appropriate amount of time.
Okay, but
to me, it got a little long in the tooth when it was like, "I will save you from drowning," but when Magneto actually remembers who he is, that is a pretty awesome moment. So it feels very earned.
Yes.
And it's like you're not really thinking that they're going to come out of this right away, even though they are kind of clearly drowning in that pub. So to me, that not the strongest part, but I think it works narratively. So kind of a weak least favorite, but whatever.
It's a pretty good episode, so the least favorites are weak parts. For myself, Deus, I agree. I didn't hate the Magneto Professor X part so much. I know it was kind of grinding up until this point, but I really thought that they had lots of touching character moments in those flashbacks, right? Like him sitting there and being like, Magnus, I'm going to stay with you. And we're going to drown together, right? And it was like a very touching, and I was like, oh, I understand the friendship between these two characters in the show, right? Like it's done fairly well. Right, and I was like, no, that's very credible, right? For myself, even I'm gonna say the Deus Ex Machina of just the Phoenix randomly appearing, right? She kind of takes out Sinister, knocks out Bastion, destroys his Prime Sentinels all in one attack, and I'm like, and then she's just gone. Seems odd. I don't know. Again, I would have much rather seen something aligned with like Madeline Pryor. Maybe it's like the Double Genes, right? They coming together, and all of a sudden I don't know. Like it just seemed like I was like. Really, we're doing a Deus Ex Machina?
Yeah, it's kind of comic book 101, though. Like, that's a comic booky trope, so I kind of forgive it. But yeah, it's.
Well, I mean, what the solution?
Earn a little bit
the solution was like, well, what if there was a time loop and Cable went back in time 10 minutes or something and fixed it? I've been like, wow, cool. So, what's the difference between time travel and Phoenix? Nothing.
Yeah, not a lot.
Yeah,
but give Jeans a chance to just own everybody and just be like, I'm gonna own you, Sinister, real quick.
And maybe her having the Phoenix Force attached ties into a future story, so it is earned and it pays off later, right? You're like, oh, okay, cool. Any other Easter eggs for this episode?
No, we definitely are getting some Onslaught teasing. I think I forgot to mention there was the Russian Crimson Dynamo, Dark Star, Omega Red, and there was again Silver Samurai just chilling.
Yeah, he's always in Japan, just overlooking the city.
Just hanging out, being like, when will they turn my lights back on? I think there's just like lots of references to Rogue, missing Gambit.
Yeah.
The Dark Side of the Moon kind of thing, that's from the Inhumans.
Yes.
That's where they hang out. Oh, we do see on Magneto and Charles, they do see in the flooding ocean, there's Polaris, Scarlet Witch, and Quicksilver, as well as Rogue, all chilling on a raft. They're clearly the people most important to him. Morph does turn into Sauron, so we actually saw him.
Okay.
We get a quick transformation to Mr. Fantastic.
Yep.
The radio station shows 1996, 06, and that's the reference of, I guess, when Onslaught first appeared.
Okay.
So, again, kind of hint more at it. Spider-Man and Mary Jane, who doesn't love seeing them. And then we got on the wall in the background of Forge near the end.
Yes.
So, Cyclops presumed dead / missing, Jean same, Storm same, Magneto same, Beast same, Nightcrawler same, Jubilee's AWOL, Sunspot's AWOL, Xavier's missing / presumed dead, Scarlet Witch is off-world.
Yep.
Colossus is available, so he's around. We got Morph, Rogue, Archangel, Wolverine, all missing / presumed dead. So weird that Archangel's Archangel.
Well, I don't know if we've ever seen him since Genosha.
Yeah, he's definitely not Warren Worthington. He's blue man. He's blue style.
Yeah.
And then we got a Dust, a Magica, an Iceman, and a Havoc.
Okay.
Cable's AWOL, which is interesting. He's not missing / presumed dead the same as everybody else.
But I mean, why is that interesting?
Well, because everybody else that disappeared that day is missing / presumed dead, and Cable's AWOL.
But he was sitting in the diner. He never went up to the asteroid.
Thought he got zipped away.
No.
But maybe okay.
No, remember before they
go
go back in time, Jean and Scott come in, they have like a psychic thing. And he's like, oh, the rebels, they always told stories about you in the future. You guys live up to the billing. And he's like, okay, bye, guys. And he doesn't look that sad. And he's like, I guess you're going to the future to raise me now. Bye.
That's fair. Then we got Exodus available, Shadowcat available, Emma Frost available, and Quicksilver's off-world.
Cool.
So, yeah. There's also a Graydon Creed for President, which ties into Onslaught some more.
Okay.
Yeah, we already mentioned the Clan Ascani, or whatever the heck they're called, and Apocalypse teases about all this death while holding one of Gambit's cards.
Yep.
So
that was like, oh, okay, so you're just doing the...
Definitely showing up as death, eh?
Oh, okay, cool. And Wolverine has no adamantium, but he gets it back when he becomes Horseman of the Apocalypse, and Morph also becomes a Horseman, and Storm is also a Horseman, and they're not at the end of the show. Oh, okay. I wonder what's going to happen next episode or next season.
Well, then those are our predictions already. So
okay, all right, cool. Finally, let's just rank the mutants from this last episode, and then we'll get into kind of the season overall, right? So we'll kind of do a big review for the second half of this podcast, and we've got our final rankings. We can kind of break it down, and I've done all the math, I've done all the calculations, so we'll get to that afterwards. But we got to start, guys, with our MVP rankings for season 1, episode 10. I know, seasons and episodes off. We both made that mistake a couple times. What we do is we rank X-Men 1 to 5. If you get first place, you get 5 points. If you get fifth place, you get 1 point. I've kept tabs on every single person. Who's number 5 this week for you, Tyson?
I got Psylocke. She shows up, she gets a point.
Right.
She doesn't say anything, but she's going to take on some Prime Sentinels, so I'm all for it.
Awesome. I put my man Beast at number 5. I thought nice. He had kind of a Trojan horse moment. He's a master, man. He just can take broken Sentinels, and him and Forge can just create a working spaceship for the team in a couple minutes. Beauty. Good job, Beast.
Oh, very useful, and I mean, he kind of gets a little Gundam moment, which is wicked. So
there you go.
Very cool.
Yeah. Number 4. Who do you have?
I have Bastion.
Okay.
First time on my list. I thought he had a great little episode. He was a very credible threat.
Yep.
I think, and the resolution with it being more philosophical instead of just a brute force slugfest, I really appreciated. I thought that he was a very good ending, and it brought out some like the themes of X-Men, and this really wrapped it up well. So I thought that I was kind of like, not sure about this choice of villain. I was sold on it by the end, so that's why he's my number 4.
I almost agree, and I kind of wish I would put him at number 4, or maybe even over like a Beast. I do think that his ending, his threat seemed credible, constant, and the kind of that change of heart he has at the end. I don't know. Does he jump? Does he reach out for Cyclops' help at the end? Potentially. And at that point, you're like, that's a very interesting character. He did not make my list, and we can't change it now. So my number 4, I think, is like your number 1. So we'll skip that for now. Who do you have at number 3?
My number 3 is Magneto.
Okay, nice.
Just like we learned a lot about his past.
Yeah.
And him just essentially grabbing Asteroid M, which is taking the whole X team to deal with. Mm-hmm. He just like awakens, and the problem is fixed.
He does have that like that touching moment, those final little parts, and he like is waking up and I am Magneto. I was like,
badass moment. Yeah. It's like, and then he just grabs the rock. Everybody like realizes it, and I think like even Rogue gets a smile on her face, mm-hmm. and everybody just like flies back into the asteroid, and it's like, what a great little ending.
No,
I love this.
Yeah, very, very solid. I'm just going to pull up your... Okay. At number 3, I have Jubilee. As we mentioned earlier, Podtendo was kind of a throwaway episode where we're like, what's the point? This is the point of it. Jubilee got a level upgrade. She's now a credible threat. She's now able to go toe-to-toe with the big bads and the future incarnate. Watch out, Jubilee. She's got some 4th of July, some July 1st up or July 4th up in your business, and she's going to be able to hold her own. I thought it was incredible, absolutely great, and just from where this character was at the end of the last series, right, even the start of this series, she was just kind of the annoying kid, we didn't really like her, to her having one of the best action moments. I was like, that's awesome, you deserve 3 more points, girl. Good for you. Do you have it number 2? Oh, sorry,
yeah.
or you talk.
I'm just gonna say about like in Jubilee, like I just like she's definitely shown herself to be like having some fighting skill. Yeah. Like she's definitely maybe one of the best boxers on the team, because she slips so many punches that everybody else just tanks.
Wow.
And it's like her thing now is like, I slip punches and I get up in your grill and I blow up your face. Like she's done it a couple times now, and I'm like, I'm glad this is her move. So.
I was thinking of timeline wise, right? So like we have some set dates, so we know that this whole series happens over the course of about 3 months, right? As per Jean's comments of, this is going to be the 3rd Blackbird that we've destroyed in as many months. So that means it's 3 months in total from Tolerance's extinction to me, my X-Men, right? That's kind of the time frame we're working with. And if you kind of break down when things happen, right? I would say Jubilee took a lot of lessons from Podtendo, right? And probably has been training and trying to increase her power level with the leadership of the Magnetos, right? In the months that kind of probably happened between that episode and...
Well, even just from like the Prime Sentinels attacking her in Sunspot and chasing them through the streets, and her just being like, I'm frantically running because I don't have a solution.
I can't fly.
So like, I'm going to go face to face with the head bat, like the most Prime Sentinel, and I'm gonna do a sick move and do it, like whip him into a thing and blow up his face. It's beautiful.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
Great. Who do you have at number 2?
I got Cyclops.
Okay.
He has that great little speech about like we've been preaching about. I'm paraphrasing, but we've been preaching about like don't be afraid of the future, and maybe we should take our own advice.
Sure. Oh, he has a bunch of great moments. Not only that one, like I said, his interaction earlier with Rogue when he's going to do the hero stand and stay on the asteroid and let the rest of the team defeat, right? And the Rogue's return of no, we Gambit didn't die so that more people could die. He died so we all can live, right? Like awesome, cool, credible. He has that. He has that moment, that touching moment with Nathan and Jean too, right? And getting to kind of look at each other's eyes, looking at his son's eyes for the first time, right? You could kind of say that means a lot to Nathan, probably because he grew up knowing his dad most of his life, apparently. So, I was like,
yeah,
okay,
apparently.
Cool. But
apparently.
Yeah, so I agree. Cyclops had a lot of cool moments. He is obviously the last guy who stands against Bastion too, right? Just like he has kind of with the Prime Sentinel attack when they had the Boulevard, right? In Madripoor, he's the last one standing, and he gets to actually things. So I like that. For myself, I have my man Nightcrawler. I love him. He's great. He's delightful. His action with Bastion, going back, it actually is incredibly animated. It's pretty fun action. It's not, I don't think it's over his top. It's not as big a moment as Cyclops. It's not as great a moment. The fact he didn't die, and the fear that I had for those 30 seconds where he's flipping around, I was like, oh no, poor Nightcrawler. So the fact he lived makes me happy.
Yeah. In a darker timeline, he does not make it out of this one.
No.
And I think we need him. We need characters like Nightcrawler and characters like Morph, not only because it just gives the animator excuse to just animators just flex like mad beasts that they are.
I think narratively he's important too, right? Like when he's sitting next to
100%.
Charles and Magneto at the end when it all looks over, how is he helping? He's easing their souls into the afterlife, right? He has his Catholic bead things, whatever that's called. Rosary is Jesus summoning beads, and he's like, come on buddy, he says his little prayers. You need that little bit of spirituality, right? And he's kind of true to his character right up to the end. Ready?
100%.
Cool. Top guys. So for yourself, I have her at number 4, you have her at number 1. She is reborn.
Yep.
Rises from the ashes, the Phoenix.
Yep. I have her so high because she is the reason why everybody's alive.
Yeah, sure.
She kind of just shuts down the party. And I like Jean's character in this because it starts out where she doesn't really know who she is.
Sure.
Because where does Madeline Pryor begin and where does Jean end?
After the Phoenix.
Yeah.
So
and it's
pretty much I could say for a fact that the Phoenix Force likes this Jean Grey's body and it happens within her. So after the Phoenix saga.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Well, even to a point where she does her thing. She's like, I am the Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
That big rise, and I think that was just narratively that was kind of beautiful to she is the chosen. This Jean is is chosen through the Phoenix, something greater than herself. She doesn't need to question who she is. She is herself, and I just thought that was a really beautiful kind of moment. And then I laugh when she just completely sucked all the life out of Sinister, and then he was left running away.
That is incredible. She has all this incredible power, and she's like, I know Bastion's a more capable threat, but she's like, Sinister, be honest with you, you annoy me. She's like,
you really piss me off.
You really are a frustrating part of my life, so I'm going to take care of you right now in a very brutal way. And yeah, taking out all this mutant DNA, leaving him as kind of a shriveled little husk, I was like, absolutely great. She did make my list for that reason. I did think this is one of the best use of her powers. We hadn't seen it yet. And I think it does, in my mind, definitively, Madeline Pryor comes after Phoenix. There is no questioning anymore. I don't think the Phoenix Force can just inhabit a body and not have some type of ill effects, right? If you go back and watch the original episode, she was exhausted. She was fainting all the time. If this Jean Grey hadn't been the Phoenix before, she would have been down and out the rest of the episode. So the fact that she's up, capable, trying to stop an asteroid with her powers a little later, creating a barrier to stop them from the black hole explosion of Asteroid M, pretty sure we could safe to say it was that moment after Dark Phoenix Saga is when the switch happened, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
Cool. And then for myself, I have Rogue. Just her... She was touching. She had that emotional ties to Gambit, which I think is probably the strongest part of this season. If watching it back, right, Remember It is one of the best things I've seen on television. Will probably be my top TV show of the year, top moment. I don't know if anything else is going to be incredible. Her crying at the end and just getting to have that moment of, no, she's held Remy with us, right? The spirit of Gambit is gone from the show. Maybe his body is there, but his spirit remains with Rogue, right? She's kind of embraced that, and going toe to toe with Bastion. Oh man, she lands some punches. She does the Hulk thunderclap, right? She's trying to single-handedly bench press this asteroid back into the sky, right? She is the driving force for Magneto. She is such an emotional part of the story that overall I just had to give her top billing on this episode, right? I think she kind of the biggest use and kind of got to be that bit of a badass at the end, right? She was taken out a little bit between episodes 6 to 9, but when she came back with a vengeance, and I think she dialed it and delivered and had an incredible final performance.
Yeah. And I mean, I love that the show gave her the opportunity to kind of be the emotional core for a lot of these episodes. And it's so well written, and that she is continually referencing him remember it. And she's always saying like his lines, and it's like gives you the feels. And yeah, definitely, especially since we aren't getting him back anytime soon,
or at all.
But
that's a possibility too.
Yeah, well, that ending kind of gives us a strong hint. I'm just interested to see if he does come back as Death, how Rogue will react.
Yeah, sure.
So,
she'll be like, hey, didn't you want me to be a Apocalypse Horseman at one point? I'll join you. Okay, cool.
It's like, could be, and that's a pretty strong.
Sure.
Maybe she's this version's Archangel.
Well, Archangel's technically Death, though, so odd for her to be like, well, guess what? Perfect. I will just kill this weak Death that I have.
I will kill other Death who happens to be my former boyfriend.
Shit. Okay, well, Gambit's
my
still dead.
My bad.
All right. So that ends our review of episode 10. Now we're back. So we both, over the course of the last week since episode 10 is released, I think we both went back and watched the entire season. So now, the final parts of the podcast is we're going to do a season recap. So we're going to do kind of our favorite parts, run it through like we would an old SideQuest Cinema review. That old thing that we do. Look at a little bit of the future cast, what we think might happen in season 2, and then we got to end with our final mutant rankings. And we've got a big list to get through. So starting off at the top of this season, Tyson, what is your favorite part? Your favorite part of season 1 of X-Men 97?
It sounds so cliche or like cheesy to say, but just to get the X-Men back in my life,
okay,
it has been a dry time since we've gotten an actual X-Men cartoon or show. It's been a hot minute since like Wolverine and the X-Men.
I was just gonna say, I remember randomly I had cable. I was in university, flipping around one day, and I saw this X-Men cartoon, and I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, but that's
probably
09. So
09,
15 years, yeah.
Yeah, so 15 years since we've actually had some proper, and I mean proper, X-Men media.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just having it back in my life. I've waited for it. We were looking forward to it all last year, and then the writer's strike and everything kicked the can down the road. So, yeah, I was just happy to have it back in my life. Missed it. Cool. Now I can talk about X-Men and point to it and be like, see, watch this show.
It's good.
And throw it at people.
I would say easily it's been a decade, right? Days of Future Past. Going back on our movie rewatch, it gets you there, pure X-Men fun. It's kind of what you're looking for, right, in that vein. So that one I might kind of tip my hat to and be like, that one's not terrible, but yeah, at least a decade, guys. That's still at least a decade since we've had this in this life. For myself, it's a pretty amazing little part of like Saturday morning cartoons, right? Now there is only one correct answer. What is my favorite part? It is episode 5. It is an absolute just masterpiece. It's such a beautiful piece of content created with these characters that we love. It brings in the action, the excitement, the heroics, right? The character that we just kind of love, right? There's this lovable Rogue, right? He is always kind of looked down upon. He looks at his past, and he steps up, and he's the biggest hero in the biggest moment of the show, right? It's amazing. But that's such an easy answer, and that's kind of like there's another category that we probably kind of have to talk about it. So otherwise, the pace and just the ambition of the storytelling in this season in general, going back week to week, it was a little bit hard to stomach. There was lots going on. There was lots of discussion, right? Going back on a rewatch, though, it's really clean. It makes sense. There's just like the arcs make sense. The uneven animation from episode to episode kind of makes sense because we just saw a big action piece and we need the quiet moments the next week. It plays together really, really well. And we've said it, guys, time and time again, ambition can be a terrible thing. It can create some of the worst movies, some of the worst games we've ever played is because somebody had too much ambition or too little time, right? It derailed projects, and that this team was able to bring us this competent, beautiful piece of media, right, that is so ambitious, that moves along, that just flies through these stories. You can tell that they had the elements, they had the love, they had the ambition, and it shows on the screen. It's awesome, it's incredible. It's like, I know it's too early to give our best of, but this is like maybe our favorite show of the year, right? So just that's my kind of favorite part, is just the overall ambition of the storytelling, right? It's done expertly, and when done correctly, it's a beautiful thing, and that's what we're looking at here. But it can also be a terrible thing. So I could point out some other games or movies if you'd like, but believe me, ambition can have its downside.
Yep. It's hard to strike that right balance, and I think it walks a very fine line and does it right.
Okay.
So
Cool. Sweet. So that is favorite parts. Obviously, we like it. Most memorable scene or episode. So what I did was I went to the IMDb ratings, and I wrote down just how every episode has been rated thus far, and we could kind of talk if we think it's a fair or not. Maybe a quick, did you like it? Did you not? And just kind of a brief synopsis on it as kind of an overview. So starting off at the lowest episode was episode 4, Podtendo / Life Death Part 1, which was ranked 7.1 on IMDb. Is that a fair ranking for that episode?
nah, those are being some haters.
Okay. All right.
Jubilee, do we want to give a little summary real quick? So Jubilee and Sunspot get sucked into a video game while it's Jubilee's 18th birthday or something.
Yeah.
And they end up having to fight Mojo and escape his evil clutches while learning some pretty cool stuff. Jubilee gets to meet the computerized future self of herself, like Beta Jubilee, which is pretty neat.
Sure.
And then in Life Death Part 1, Forge and Storm are hanging out and trying to unlock Storm's abilities back. And we learn a little bit more about Forge's backstory, and
Sure.
a demon owl shows up.
So 7.1, is that a fair rating? Overall, at the time, yeah, it's kind of half a story we get with Storm, right? So it's not a complete narrative there. The Jubilee, it makes sense at the end, but like definitely the weakest episode. 7.1, sure, it's competent. That works for us. Episode 6, Life Death Part 2. This is the conclusion of the Storm Forge arc where she tries to get her powers back, as well as we get to see what Professor X was up to and check in with the Shi'ar Empire. So at 7.9, is episode 6 properly rated?
If Motendo and Life Death Part 1 is properly rated, then Life Death Part 2 is too high.
Oh.
I think that Motendo and Life Death maybe should be closer. Maybe it should be a
Sure.
7.8
Cool.
or 7.9.
I could bite
and
that.
Life Death then should be probably fine.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
This episode, no way is it. Outside of the I love Storm's, like, it's absolutely incredible. And when she gets her powers back and she does her, like, fly, right? That part is pretty cool, but is it 8 points better or 0.8 better than the first one?
Yeah,
I agree.
Is Vulcan showing up in Gladiator being like, yes, I exist?
Yeah. Worth 0.8 more? I don't know, but yeah, you're right. Okay, so probably a little overrated if we think the other one is closer to a 7. Episode 1, To Me, My X-Men. We meet the X-Men as they try and track down and stop Sentinel tech being released by Gyrick and Boulevard, 2 original creators of the Sentinels. To Me, My X-Men, 8.4. Is that properly?
I think so,
Yeah.
because it's the pilot.
Sure.
A little rough around the edges, and not like it's kind of just establishing, getting everything back running.
Yep.
I kind of like it. I remember really enjoying it. It is a pilot, so I kind of feel like that maybe that 8.4,
Sure.
maybe a little high.
Well, let's look.
Maybe it's
if you look
closer
at
to
these
an
next
8 or whatever.
If you look at the next 2 episodes and they're clumped together, sure, pretty close, right? So the next episode, an 8.6 is given to episode 3, Fire Made Flesh. This is the conclusion of Clone Gene, so Madeline Pryor, Sinister's evil ambitions of Baby Nathan with Gene, and Fire Made Flesh. Is that appropriate? An 8.
Maybe just because, the story's not super in depth,
Yeah.
and the conclusion's really rushed.
Yeah.
But you do get that wicked fight scene, and I love that fight scene. I think that's one of my favorite fight scenes from this whole series so far.
Yeah, that's kind of almost like what I'm thinking. What is the first episode of the X-Men, the fight in the Sahara Desert? Incredible, awesome, cool, good stuff. Yeah, the fight with Madeline Pryor, cool, awesome, good stuff. Episode 7, Bright Eyes. That is in the aftermath of Gambit's death. Rogue is searching for vengeance, and the X-Men try and uncover what is happening with this new X-Men, or this underground TOZ or something like that, that they keep Rogue keeps running into, which leads into a Prime Sentinel fight with Bolivar, Trask, Prime Sentinel, and appearance of Cable. So, pound for pound, though, the fight in the desert, Madeline Pryor's fight, and the fight with Bolivar, Prime Sentinel, are if you wanted to clump all those together. That's not terrible. 8.4, 8.6, 8.7.
No, and I think Bright Eyes might get the edge because it really is just like Rogue just lost Gambit and she's pissed.
Yeah.
And you can just tell that she's not asking, she's just taking, she's demanding answers. And I think that this is where they really start to kind of flush out with all the extra references.
Yeah.
And which doesn't stop even until the end of like, hey, here's Iron Man, here's Captain America, here's Black Panther. Like I think they start in Bright Eyes and they don't stop.
Okay.
So this is kind of a real good expansion of the world kind of episode. So yeah, right around that, 8.7, sure, why not?
Then we have episode 2, Mutant Liberation Begins. This is where Magneto takes over leadership of the X-Men, which sees his trial at the UN. Storm gets depowered. We get that kind of that cool philosophy, his version of philosophy, as he kind of discusses. And that's a 9.1, probably fair, sure.
Yep.
Okay.
And I think it's timely with the references to January 16th or January 9th or where the heck it's called.
January 6th, I think.
January 6th, sorry.
No, okay. You're right.
I'm bad at dates. I blur all that crap together.
All right, so that one kind of works there. Episodes 8, 10, and 9 are ranked 9.4, 9.5, and 9.5. So that is Tolerance Issues Part 1, Part 3, Part 2, in that order. Is that how you agree with the final attack with the Prime Sentinels, or I guess just the Prime Sentinels attack and dealing with Bastion, right? And the conclusion on Asteroid M. Are all those episodes about a 9?
As funny as it is, I think that episode Part 1 and Part 3 are stronger than Part 2, but Part 2 has the higher rating than Part 1.
I agree. I would
go 9.4 for Part 2 and then 9.5 for the other two.
I agree. That's exactly how I would do it. I was like, I think number 10 was better than 9. Like 9 is maybe worse.
Yeah, it's like 9 interesting. I guess it's kind of like it's dark and how are we going to get ourselves out of this one?
But it also has that's like the one with like the worst animation in the whole of the 3 episodes.
Yeah.
Like the fights are all outside of the Sinister fight. They're all kind of like, anyway. So I'm like, oh, cool. Great. It's funny how that works. And then finally the best episode, episode 5, remember it. That is Rogue, Gambit, and Magneto going to Genosha and just the massacre of Genosha from, what do they call it? Kaiju? I don't know. Did it ever get a name?
Yeah, the 3-headed sentinel. I don't know, like Kaiju Sentinel. Kaiju Sentinel sounds because it's massive.
And then, as we mentioned,
an extinction gene.
Yeah, as we mentioned, the sacrifice of Gambit at the end to save the day. So that is a 9.8, almost a perfect episode of television. And pound for pound, beautiful animation, great storytelling, thrilling or not a compelling love story, right? That's kind of told.
Didn't feel the need to try to deflate the sails or leave any brevity. It's like no, Gambit died and sacrificed himself, and here's Rogue just crying about it.
And as soon as the attack happens on the party and they kind of rally and Gambit and Rogue and Magneto take off, like some of the best 10 minutes of television you'll ever watch. It's incredible. I went back and watched it and I'm like, I almost can't believe this is on television. This is like something I paid for and didn't have to go see it in the theater, right? It's just such an epic, incredible moment. The sound cues, the drama, the emotion that they pull in this episode. It's just great. 9.8. Yeah. Is it 100% perfect? No. I really want to know what's going on with those damn apples. And that's something I will never be able to live with, not knowing.
Well, you know what? Maybe when in season 2,
when Gambit comes back as Death, I really hope he sits down and he's like, hold on, everyone. I know I died, but I now talk like this too. I don't know why I'm not Cajun. But those apples, guys, what was up with that? We're like, oh,
right?
Okay. Cool. So we agree. That's how the episodes are ranked.
Yeah. So essentially half the season got rated above a 9, which I think is very strong for a kids cartoon show. As all the idiots who criticize that animation without appreciating it. And I think this averages out to like an 8.8 over the whole season. So a little bit of hate for the Podtendo Life Death Part 1, maybe bringing down that average, because this is just a solid 9. It's strong. I really appreciate this. I think that this is they hit the nail of the park, like the ball out of the park on this one. Hit the nail on the head. Yeah. Got my two sayings.
Hit the nail out of the park. That's impressive.
Yep, absolutely.
That takes a lot of force to hit a nail that far, just because like the weight is there and like the baby.
That's how good it was. Okay. That's how good it was.
Yeah, okay. Cool. So we'll do a least favorite part. We'll do a little bit of negatives as what we can. Talk about the future, and then we'll get into our rankings, and we'll get out of here. So we're coming down, people. We gotta. It's like our passion project. We spent a whole year talking about X-Men movies that are terrible. Give us like some time to gush about something that's actually lovely.
Yeah, let's enjoy actual.
Can you
good
imagine if like
things.
the movies were half as good as like one of these episodes?
Man,
Like
we would have gotten actual more competent movies.
X2's
Like
fine.
Logan,
Yeah.
the Logans of the world would have shown up sooner.
Yeah, Logan, X2, and like Days of Future Past. There'd be more than just 3. Okay, cool. We wouldn't have been
No. We need the Dark Phoenix movie.
I listened to a podcast and like as I was doing my research, someone's like, I kind of like Dark Phoenix, the movie. Like, I know it's stupid, but you just have to like take like 2 plot points out. It's like kind of enjoyable and like it's a good use of characters and stuff. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm watching Dark Phoenix again to see if this person's on crack. Least favorite part. So what's your least favorite part of season 1?
We kind of hinted at it throughout a few of the episodes. Pacing, man, this like I think the final episode is like 40 some ish minutes. Yep. Right size. That's the right length. Add an extra 10 minutes to these. We aren't just like pedal to the metal this whole time. Yep. That's my biggest complaint. We need more. Like, you're trying to shove too much story into such little thing, and we don't get to sometimes simmer on things. I think they handle it amazingly. But my least favorite part is I just give us 40 minutes. Don't be like, don't like. This isn't being aired on cable. Just give us 40-minute stuff. Do what the story needs.
And dumb down the animation if you have to for 10 minutes. Give us some more
slideshows is fine. I don't care. Like, you can do that stuff.
Have some pictures and just like some scanning photos of like memories, people. Yeah, for myself, I love the story, the world, the atmosphere, the characters so much. I just wanted more. Weird. I would have been against... I wouldn't have been against a bit more of exposition and just explanation to the plot. So I think I understand the points, right? But they did leave a lot to the imagination, and maybe things will be resolved in the future. But it's one of those things where I wish they had a bit more, right? There are a few plot holes, hanging threads that just would have been nice to wrap up, and I could have used like Bastion explaining his plan or something at one point. I've been like, okay, cool, because it is kind of just a guess.
Yeah, and it's kind of just a guess about how he truly feels about things. We're just kind of assuming based on how he acts, which sometimes, show don't tell, but sometimes tell, because me dumb.
Exactly, and like you could have had a bit more time, and like Tyson alluded to, it doesn't have to be these big...
You don't need a monologue.
Just like a little bit, like a couple extra minutes here and there, just to kind of tie some things together. There, cool. It's funny that we both had a favorite least part. How about a final... Oh, and I said... the Phoenix Ex Machina. I was like thinking about more, and I'm like, man, that's lazy convenient storytelling. Maybe it comes back up again. If the Phoenix Force needed to be in, that she go to the future so that Rachel Summers somehow can have the Phoenix Force, because you want to tell some cool stories, or like we have the Messiah complex coming up. Yeah, I think you need the Phoenix for that, because it goes into Rachel and cool. Maybe there's a chance. I'm not going to be super critical, but like I'm like,
I just think that's such a comic booky thing.
Yeah, I know.
Like, there's so many comic book stories that I've read where within not even like a page, within literally 2 to 3 panels, all of a sudden the problem's resolved.
Yeah. I again, could you have just been like, you could kill Jean, but you couldn't kill Jean and Madeline, and then I don't know, I've been like, oh yeah, okay, Madeline's back. Strange.
Yeah.
Anyways, how about a criticism?
Losing Madeline. Come on here. You built her up. You gave her a kick-ass fight scene.
And she dies.
Made me fall in love.
I know.
Now she's gone.
I know.
I'm sad.
Okay.
I can't go back. I'm like Cable. I root for Cable here. So
stuck with your awful clone mom. Damn her. Criticism. Do you have a final criticism?
Yeah. Why don't you start? Get my brain a few minutes to kind of...
I'm going to do something that I hate. And I'm going to read this statement as a declaration of maybe I've lost my mind. I don't know exactly what's going on. I actually have a doctor's appointment this week, so anyone that's listening, don't be too concerned. But normally, I would say I prefer weekly episodes over the binge. But after binging this show again, it does work so much better. The fast-paced storytelling keeps every episode feeling a bit more intertwined and part of kind of a greater overarching story. The weird narrative beats or animation lulls are way less notable when watched in succession. It feels kind of like it's a bigger animated movie, similar to like some of the masterworks that DC's been releasing with the Batmans and stuff like that, or there's some of the Justice League movies, right? It's just this big over thing, and I'm like, oh, I get it, and like that makes sense, and like, oh, this character said that, oh, because he said it like 10 minutes ago, it wasn't a week ago. And honestly, I don't know how to feel about this. This show has made me betray one of my core tenets of my characters. And maybe it's just the consumability and the digestibility and the consumption of, say, a Saturday morning cartoon that's a bit more fluffy and a bit less sinky, that the binge does work. And going back and rewatching a bunch of these episodes all in a row, it plays super, super well. And I don't know how to feel about that. I weekly is definitely the way to go, but it does work very well in a binge. So that's my criticism. I don't know who I am anymore.
No, that's fair. That's fair. See, and I think it comes at it from two different angles here. So the binge, if it works for a binge, it means that the story was cohesively told.
Yep.
So that's good. That's good.
Yep.
So, but marketing wise and releasing wise and building things out into our culture and our pop culture and our ethos and into the what people are talking about, the weekly just works better.
Certainly.
So
yeah.
Coming from a like pop culture and appreciation and actually investing into this show, the weekly does work better. It hurts me because I just want to sit down and watch the whole thing all in one go, and it kind of stresses me out every Wednesday because I don't want to do anything all day. I just want to go home, watch my X-Men, and not be bothered until I can kind of get home and do it. I get stressed. So I get that, but at the same time, this drip feed of content has made us, I think, more hungry.
Okay.
To a point where it's kind of piqued our interest for longer, as opposed to the Fallout TV show is a great example, because I was singing its praises because it's kind of just a blip and over. I feel like it's so much faster, the decay of retention and knowledge and being in the ethos of what people's conversations are, it just drops off. So like I'm sure as like YouTube creators or whatever, if we were going to release something, the weekly is just works better for that. Whereas like trying to make a binge content about, hey, in episode 2 of Fallout, I'm sure there's like a very niche category, but you're not going to catch that same thing where it's like, hey, this is the new episode this week. Yeah. So I think just like from a marketing and a pop culture and a appreciation standpoint, the weekly, I still stand by the weekly, but I understand your point about the being able to binge it. Just so much nicer. It just makes the story so much more easy to follow, and it's like, but I'm okay with that because I can have that both ways now that it's all released.
I guess if it's a good show, binging is easy afterwards. Actually, it works both ways. Yeah, like you were saying, that's good. Criticism too. Again, the promotion on Disney Plus. Like, why wasn't this a top billed show? No, we gotta have whatever. There's like a Queen concert from Montreal from 1984, and that was like promoted this week, and I'm like, you guys. Silly app. Do you have a criticism?
I think my criticism was I need to be patient. Okay. This is a me criticism, not a TV show criticism.
And you know what? Binge culture in general is a problem because a lot of people, again, we have a whole week and people are like, oh, guys, we're getting Onslaught next week. Oh, we're doing this. We're doing that. And then when it doesn't happen, people kind of like, oh, I guess that's wrong. And I don't like this because, again, it wasn't a time travel story. How dare you use Phoenix not time travel? Shame on you. Because I had a week to think about it, my expectations are kind of hurt because I come in with baggage, right? So.
Yep. Oh, for sure. And that was me. Tolerance's Extinction Part 2. I was like, come on. All my other predictions were right, you bastards. Why are you not giving me the things I need? And then Part 3 rolls around and you're like, you gave me what I was expecting. Yeah. Cool. It's like, patience, Tyson. Okay. Patience. So that's my criticism, is I sometimes need to just like leave my baggage at the door and just appreciate what was rolled out to me.
Yeah. Okay, how about a final praise? And we'll get out of here. So for myself, oh boy. All right, do you want to go first or do you want me to read this wall of text?
I'll say what I got to say because I think I'll say it quick. Okay. This was my praises. This is the best TV show I've seen in a few years. Yeah, I'm biased because I like X-Men and they're one of my favorite franchises. But at the same time, I think that the quality we're getting is not only storytelling, but philosophically, emotionally, spiritually. This isn't like such a tight package. This is everything I love about comics and everything I love about X-Men. It's back in my life. and I'm happy for it. So my praise is just like,
Yeah.
this show was so expertly crafted. Thank you for everybody who worked on it. Seriously.
Cool.
So
All right. I'm going to say exactly like Tyson said in different words. So the competent storytelling of the show, there's so many elements of the story that are told via subtext. Watching the whole story back, right? Xavier seems a bit more even. Magneto arc feels more earned. The story is cleaner. It leaves less questions. It seems like fans of the show from back in the day, little guys that watched it just like us, studied how to tell stories and write characters, and have brought us this love letter to this property that is so near and dear to who I am as a person, right? The X-Men are one of the earliest kind of favorite IPs I had in my life. We had this little elastic Wolverine toy that would ride around us in our Jeep, and we'd play with him all the time, right? And after spending a year reviewing X-Men movies and discussing the Hollywood versions of these characters, right, I was a little bummed out. But this show has reinvigorated that love, that passion, that the enjoyment I get from X-Men. And I'm very pleased that the world now knows or has a portal to accessing these amazing stories and characters that I love, right? Except for Sunspot. Oh, I was being so nice, and I had to take a shot at Sunspot at the end. Ah, shucks.
He did save Jubilee.
Yeah.
After she got sucked out of Asteroid M.
Normally I've been like, oh, like, had I not watched this season and like I just saw that, I was like, Jubilee's terrible. Who cares if she dies? But I'm like, I love Jubilee. Jubilee's phenomenal. She's great. Like, if she would have died, I would have been like crushed. I'm like, oh, you can't kill her. She's
100%. Yeah. Actually, leaving her off my list of top 5 mutants from this episode was hard, because it's like, damn, she is so good. Like, she is like quickly rising up my ranks of like one of my favorite X-Men.
You know what? It's interesting. We'll get to it in a second. So, but I had to throw a little shade at my boy Sunspot because he gives shade to everyone else because he's just going cool. But I'm glad we both enjoyed that. That's great. Future casting. Should I be mean? Should I be mean and call everyone who talked about Onslaught a tool?
No, because they might be right in season 2.
Okay, all right. Well, if he's not, I'm going to take this opportunity to say every single person. Now, I watched some shows, and there was people that are definitely experts, and you can tell that they've read, and then there's some people that are pretty faces and might just be on the internet because of a pretty face. And man, oh man, did those pretty faces love Onslaught. They're like, oh boy, you can't get enough of this guy. I'm like, I feel like you just know how to Wikipedia and you looked at like comic books, and what if they don't go there? Anyways.
Yeah, well, especially because it's like, the stories change. Yeah. Like OZT starts because Graydon Creed dies because he's president.
Certainly, and
I don't think Graydon Creed is currently president right now.
And if we pull out the Age of Apocalypse comics, we could go through and try and decide what's going on. No, guys, just they're doing a good job. And guess what? They're better at. I have an analogy.
Who would have figured? People who studied writing and do this professionally,
better content creators and making this media than we are as fans. It's great to fun and speculate, and it's supposed to be that. But the lack of accountability in theory casting or predictions always bugs me.
Oh, well, and the funny thing is, it's like, it's easy to just spitball ideas because words are cheap. Mm-hmm. Who's Disney paying to make this stuff? Oh, these writers? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that the people who are a $1 billion company who actually have to invest in individuals to produce content, they're not just going to hire a bunch of idiots online and be like, these idiots said some stuff I liked. No. Yeah. No, like these are quality writers. They know how to tell stories. They know how to drip feed, all that stuff. Like, we've been singing their praises the whole year. Yeah. It's like, just sit back. That's what, like, my criticism against myself is like, be patient, yeah. Tyson. Don't be one of those people that like, I need to predict something every single episode. So no, just
predictions and thoughts and kind of what's going forward in the next season, or things we didn't like. I wouldn't be surprised if they get talked about in the next episode. Obviously, time travel. Bishop's going to be there, and look, where was Bishop? Bishop might be a main character in the next season. We're like, okay, I guess that's why he had to be introduced in the last one, so he just wasn't like showing up at the end. Oh, okay, cool. Interesting storytelling. Neat. Anyways, right. We'll move on for that. So cool. So that wraps up our final praise. Will we talk about this show more in the future? Maybe there's some X-Men video games that we're like, when we have that itch, we're like, we need this. But finally, let's do our final X-Men mutant rankings for season 1, guys. So every episode, we ranked X-Men or mutants 5 to 1. 1 would get 5 points. 5th place would get 1 point. And I've kept tabs. I've done the math. We have tiers of mutants. So we'll go through each tier kind of one at a time, and we could talk about standouts or just be like, yeah, okay, I guess that makes sense why that person. Maybe gush a little bit more about like the tops or something, but it'll make sense.
Yeah, I feel like once we kind of get to tier 5 and up, it'll be a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, some of these
bottom ones are a little maybe just. I think tier 5 15 is strictly just like,
They-
here's Tyson's pity points.
So tier 16 is actually Tyson's pity points. So rather than giving Robert DaCosta any credit, he gave Sauron 1 point. So in a tier by himself with 1 point is Sauron.
Sure did. Sure did. He showed up.
Woo.
But he made a couple references, actually.
Sure.
So
Sure. At tier 15, we have the 2-pointers. We've got Psylocke, Spiral, and Vulcan.
yeah, more of my characters, and I'm like,
They were there.
I like these characters, so I'm giving them a point.
They were there. The man, the time traveling himself, the guy we thought would be a bigger deal in this season, but wasn't. Lucas Bishop with 3 points is a tier by himself at tier 4.
I think that's telling because, I mean, we both were like, okay, he's going to be a big character. And I think we both like Bishop as a character.
Oh, I love Bishop.
So
That
it's just
moment
like,
he had when he's fighting the demons, when Madeline Pryor's like in her hell that she creates, awesome. And then he just disappears. And I was like, okay, cool.
oh, absolutely. To the point where it's like, he's a character we like. And he's below, let's say, a character I dislike
It's
in the next
just
tier.
volume. It's just volume. Like when we get to one
Yeah.
character, and I'm like, he's this low because he wasn't there, right? Tier 13,
Yeah.
we see at 4-pointers, we have Professor X tied with. Okay.
Yep, yeah. Yep.
Yep. Yeah, they were around, and other guys just did better stuff, Professor X, and you're kind of a guy. So Beast might have got more points than he deserved because he wanted Jubilee to have a party. So, so Professor X, you're tied with a guy who just wanted a girl to be able to party on her 18th birthday. Good job. At tier 12, we have Emma Frost with 5 points.
Woo. Yeah.
If anyone
pumped
is,
on that
yeah,
one.
if anyone is going to be above Professor X, like Emma Frost, just 1 more point seems like perfect poetry.
That's satisfying
Mm-hmm.
because it's like she didn't really even do anything, but she did throw some shade at Moira.
Yeah.
And she was there, so she got points.
Very nice.
And I appreciate her.
At tier 11, maybe a guy who was, he only appeared later on. Maybe he could have got some more points from me in the last episode, looking back, right? If I could have changed a couple things. Would be Bastion with 7 points.
Yeah. But I think that considering who he's kind of tucked in between, it's like some fan favorites.
Yep.
So obviously he was doing something. He was having some good scenes, and I think like by the end of it, we both kind of really liked him as a character. A person we knew nothing about.
Sure.
Guess what? By the end of the season, learned a little bit about who Bastion is.
Worked. Yeah, like maybe I would have liked if he was a bit higher than this one. I think he deserves in tier 9, right? So 2 more points probably would have been
Yeah.
proper for Bastion, right? So at tier 10 with 8 points, we have Wolverine, right? Pretty quiet outside of his Fatal Attraction arc, his kiss on Jean, and his Apocalypse comment. Oh, I guess he had a fight with
Yeah.
Nightcrawler.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's kind of where he got the bulk
This is
of his
perfect.
points was that fight.
Here, top.
Yeah.
He's on the list, but he doesn't have the top guy because Hugh Jackman had tons of movies. He's in a movie this year with Deadpool. Wolverine, everyone loves him. He can step back. At tier 9, though, we do have Cable, and at 9 points, probably where Bastion should have been, right? So 9 points for Cable. Kind of makes sense because Cable kind of didn't do much.
Yeah, and again, a volume issue,
Yeah.
not appearing a lot,
Yeah.
but he's a fan favorite, does do some critical stuff like save the team after they're getting just smoked by Bilver Trask at the Prime Sentinel. So I think he kind of stacked some points a lot on that episode, but also with another character we're kind of waiting around for a long time. So
That's it. And kind of just hung out
Yeah.
with mom and dad most of the time. Number 8, though, is Cable's mom, Madeline Pryor, with 10 points.
Yeah.
She kicked ass. Episode 3 was her story, and then she died.
yeah, unfortunately, I think super strong character, hit the ground running. If we were probably looking at a chart of most points at the start of this, shows up, kills it in the first third, and then just is gone. And we just get to wallow in our own sadness.
That's it. Okay, at tier 7, we have Morph with 11 points. So in and out, jumped around, all confused me for about 5 episodes. I was like, oh my gosh, we're getting Lady Deathstrike or Juggernaut's here. No, it was always just Morph. Good old
Yep.
Morph.
What's Sabretooth doing here?
Yeah. Oh, you looked away for a
Yep.
second? Oh, no, Morph. Okay, cool. Now this is kind of where it gets a little bit more interesting. And this is where I'm saying it's appearance based, guys. It's appearance. So tier 6, we have Forge and Gambit with 12 points. So maybe the emotional epicenter of this entire series, right? With Gambit, only 12 points. He was pretty quiet. He had a giant moment, and then he was gone, right? So
Yeah. It's hard for him to earn lots of points when he was gone.
Yeah.
But not an episode after he was gone did we not think about him. So Yeah, it was sad, very sad one. Losing him this year was something I did not expect.
No, not at all.
Rest in peace, Gambit.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You want to cry later? Go back, watch episode 5, have a tear. So top 5, at number 5, tier 5 by himself. We have, I guess, maybe more of the villain of the show, right? If you want to say Bishop, Bastion, and Mr. Sinister, kind of 1A, 1B villain. This is where we do get the villain kind of credence. 14 points, Mr. Sinister.
Yeah, a little bit more appearances. Definitely, I feel always has a little bit more agency.
Very integral to
like,
the plot.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's the reason him and the Summers family have big history. So
it's so funny. And Mr. Sinister is kind of a funny character because in Beyond Good and Evil, right, when he's working with Apocalypse is definitely betraying him, and he's betraying Apocalypse, and just like no allegiance. And even in this show, when Morph turns into Mr. Sinister and brings in the collar at the end of episode 9, he's like, "Oh, make Xavier's runts are in the base," and Bastion's just like, "No, Sinister is like the most treacherous man I know. Like my partner would never ever try and save me." And I'm like, why are you partners with this guy though? Like he's just such a dick.
And then for him to like get sucked out all of like and become old and wrinkly.
The only thing that would have got him more points if that little guy that hung with him in the Savage Land that was like, "Master," after he gets blown up in like season 2, I would have liked him to follow him around. I'd like to have if he would have had a little friend, that would have been nicer. And he's just like so chill. And like, was it Dr. Cooper? She's like, "Hi, Sinister." He's like, "Hello, Doctor." And I'm like, why are you friends with this scary man?
Oh, I bet you like he do the Starbucks run? He's like, "Oh, well, this one's on me," or whatever.
Okay. Oh, yes, all that old Victorian England money. So he's loaded. Tier 4 by herself. Oh boy, one of the girls that blew up in our hearts this year. Again, we would have cried if she would have been sucked out into space. We have Jubilee with 15 points. Go get some, girl.
Yeah, big upgrade. I think she's really earned her spot on the team. She's no longer the kid that just stay in the Blackbird or whatever. It's like no, don't need to worry about her. The teams when they break out, it's like. Yeah, Cyclops, Nightcrawler, and Jubilee, you're the last line of defense. It's like, that sounds like an okay team.
Awesome. At tier 3, though,
instead of just being like, yeah, so
we've got
very cool. Tier 3.
One of the, I was going to say, the main girl of the X-Men, but no, there's a few girls that can buy it. Girl power, tier 3, we have Rogue and Jean Grey both with 19 points.
Yeah. I mean...
pound for pound,
kind of hard.
2 of the most powerful X-Men that have stepped up and had big emotional ties throughout the whole series.
Definitely. And I think these girls were front and center of a lot of the stories in this. And Rogue essentially had a few episodes of just like, I'm going to solo this because I need to process the loss of Gambit.
Yep.
And Jean had a few episodes of just being like, I don't know who I am as a person. And I think they both had their like emotional arcs that they kind of went through, and they resolved
for
them
not
quite
having
well.
Specific stories tied in being like the main characters outside of maybe Remember It. You could say Rogue was probably up there, right? But yeah, just being tertiary, secondary characters for all the stories, they always stepped up. They showed great display of powers, and that's their rankings. Tier 2 is our kind of, I guess you want to call them like the sub leaders of the X-Men, the future leaders, some of the strongest characters, in Cyclops, Storm, and Nightcrawler at 23 points. So Cyclops, Storm, cool, great. Storm gets her own emotional journey throughout the whole series, right? Cyclops is kind of at the epicenter of almost all the conflicts, dealing with the conflict of his his secondary abilities coming in, of gravity not affecting him, of trying to vie for leadership. What does he want for the future? Losing his son, losing his wife,
owning a Porsche.
Oh, being in, it's so much going on with this character. Same with Storm. And then clearly my love of Nightcrawler is on display with 23 points. So I was very excited.
Hey, who got some of the best fight scenes of the series? Nightcrawler.
Yeah, against the Prime Sentinels, against Bastion. He had some of the emotional moments, right? He was kind of a bit of a tie to Rogue later on, right? So, but probably could have been a little lower. But I'm like, clearly you just see that how much I love Nightcrawler. I was like, I think he averaged, like if we would have done an average, what was he in 5 episodes? So he has like a 4 point something, like a 4.7 average.
Yeah, he's definitely like, but definitely punching above his weight. I think that he's the utility, the Swiss Army knife for the X-Men. Like, he showed up on Genosha.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we don't really talk too much about his him saving Rogue and everybody on in
So he had a moment.
Genosha
He had a
Day.
moment in Genosha. Yeah, he always had.
He like, it was ever since he stepped onto the show, he's been doing work every single episode. He was given a very heartfelt eulogy to Gambit. Every episode he does something that's killer.
And Cyclops has got praise. Nightcrawler's got praise. We would do ourselves a disservice if we didn't talk about just the beauty, the majesty, the power that Storm brought to the series. She was kind of like the goofy black girl character in the original team and did stuff once in a while. And often she would like faint. In this series, they ramped her up. They gave her tons of moments. And some of my favorite moments of the show, anytime you hear a thunder strike and her theme strike up, and I'm like, I get chills. Like, I have goosebumps right now just having the song in my head. It's incredible. She is the goddess and deserves to be one of the top guys from this.
Oh, for sure. And gets kind of her own 2 solid solo-ish episodes, even though it's kind of like
Life,
solo
Death,
episodes
Part
split
2.
over 2.
Again, it's dumb. They're in outer space. But her overcoming the adversary and just that final moment, her regaining her powers is incredible, right? If we were to rank parts of it, might be up there as like one or two, like second or third spot behind Remember It in terms of just like awesome, incredible, something that's going to stick with me for a while.
Yeah, and like, I mean, episode 2 or 3, she loses her powers. Yeah. So it's like, and she is someone who I think is so emotionally attached, like who she is, like her idea of self is within her powers. Like, she is like the goddess of storms or whatever. And it's like, nobody else is like, Cyclops is not the god of laser beams coming out of his eyes. Like, she's so emotionally invested into her powers and how they make her who she is. So for her to lose her powers was like this huge thing. And I remember, like, when we watched it was like, whoa, man, like that was a big episode of big moment of the series. So she definitely earned her spot in the second tier.
Sweet. And then finally, number one tier, he won. I'm pretty sure he won our movies. If you go back and listen to Logan, when we do our rankings there, I think he was the number one guy in our heart. I think he's one of the compelling, interesting villains in comic books, heroes, depending where his alliance are at the point. At 33 points, way out of the pack, we have the leader of the X-Men, Magneto.
Yeah. It seems to be a recurring thing. I know we both like him as a villain, but I think that who he is as a villain is complicated.
So
but we got to see him as
right?
little bit of as a villain, because he's not black or white. He's this form of gray. Whereas it's like, when you give into the fear and of how people are going to hurt them, you agree with Magneto. Yeah. Magneto was right after Genosha. Magneto was right.
He is a beautifully written character, and he's awesome because at any point he's like, people are different and they hate and stomping in boots, and I was in the Holocaust, and you're like, oh okay. It's cool. It's great. It's going to be harder to tell these stories, right? As we get further away from these events, people will kind of forget them. They won't live in our memories, right? But Magneto, from a 90s villain who nowadays even plays really well, is incredibly done. And apparently the voice actor of the original Magneto from the original series had died. That's why he sounds different.
That makes sense, because I thought he had an older gentleman.
Yeah, it always seemed a little adjacent, and I was like, it seems weird. Apparently that guy passed away, so it's not that he didn't return. He couldn't return to the project, so that's why he does sound a little different. But again, he was the emotional crux of this series, and go back and watch it. He does just a lot, and there's a lot going on, and it's good. It's awesome. It was an incredible series. I'm excited that we have this outlet, right, that we get to sit and talk about this, and I've had to get to discuss it, and I'm not just watching it on my own, right? Looking for other sources, great content for others to use, right? So hopefully it's dropping either Holiday Monday here in Canada, or I think it might be a holiday in the States as well. Maybe on the Tuesday, you guys might get it if I don't get around to it, editing it all today. But that's kind of our show for the week. We're back in 2 weeks with a video game, and then I think we're diving into another retrospective after we do a numbered show. So
yeah. Should be good. Lovely to do this and kind of do this episode by episode. And if you ever have any feedback or thoughts or whatever, please leave a comment in our videos on YouTube and send us a message, because we'd love to hear from you. And I know me and Mick would always love to. We're more interested in having a discussion and a conversation than we are in criticizing or anything like that. So
Certainly.
if you got a different thought process, or who is your top 5 X-Men of this series? Ours was surprising
Did
to
Mr.
me,
Sinister
but
make
not,
yours?
right. Didn't think that he'd make ours, but he kind of did.
Yeah. What a Sinister was. Cool. Awesome. Yeah, with that. And yeah, thanks, Tyson, for doing this. It was kind of a fun little project we did since the start of last year, right? So it's been a couple months, 18 months or so of talking about X-Men, and we're done, though. For now.
Yeah, love it.
Till next time.
Look forward to it probably next year.
Yeah, hopefully. Cool. So with that, I think we'll say goodbye, guys, and see you guys in a couple weeks.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.